Hi everyone. Before you drift off, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. If you're enjoying the stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's relax and jump into tonight's case. Story 1. Let's dive in. Minnesota, Jaleesa Thaler. Our first story unfolds in Minnesota, specifically in Orono, on May 22, 2022. Police officers came across Jaleesa Thaler's car after receiving reports of a vehicle with a damaged window and a flat tire. During the stop, officers noticed what seemed to be blood on Jaleesa and some more inside the car. They even spotted a bullet hole and shell casings, but they didn't detain Jaleesa right away. Instead, they drove her home while others stayed behind to check her vehicle. It was then that they made a grim discovery: the body of Jaleesa's 6-year-old son in the car's trunk, alongside a shotgun. An autopsy later revealed that Eli had been shot multiple times, up to 9, including in the head. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office later charged Jaleesa with second-degree murder. Although her boyfriend was with her during the initial stop, he was released due to a lack of evidence. Jaleesa's excuse, as per police reports, was that the blood was from a soft item and the bits in the car were from an animal she had picked up. But how did the police let Jaleesa, with her son's bloodied body in the car, go home without raising suspicions? Search warrants in the investigation showed that officers did notice blood, human tissue, and a spent shell casing in the car, but still let Jaleesa go. She was later charged with murder for allegedly shooting her son multiple times with a shotgun. Search warrants also mentioned suspected blood on Jaleesa's hands, face, and clothes during the vehicle stop. The investigation uncovered troubling details, leaving many wondering how such a tragic event could occur without detection. During the investigation, Bila, a key figure, grew restless and declined to wait in the squad car. After her release, an officer drove her back home. The Orono Police Department declined to comment on how they handled the traffic stop due to an ongoing inquiry. Following Thala's release, investigators decided to impound her vehicle because of the likely presence of blood and tissue. While examining the car, officers made a grisly discovery: Eli Hart's body in the trunk. Rushing back to the apartment to arrest Thala, they found she had already left, having washed the clothes she wore during the traffic stop. Officers swiftly located and apprehended her. Eli Hart was also the subject of a custody dispute between his father, Torrey Hart, and Dakota County authorities. In January 2021, Dakota County initiated child protection proceedings, granting them legal and physical custody. Despite Tony Hart's attempt to gain full custody, the court maintained Dakota County's guardianship. The case was put on hold while the child protection matter was resolved. Thala was awarded full custody on May 10th, prompting the case to be reactivated. Eli Hart's parents were scheduled to appear for a preliminary case management meeting on June 21st. Court documents revealed that social services had concerns about Thala's mental well-being, living conditions, and criminal record. Friends and Eli Hart's former foster mother had voiced worries that Thala might harm her son if granted custody. Sadly, their fears were tragically confirmed, but by then it was too late to save the innocent boy's life. Moving on to California, Angela Flores told authorities that she heard the voice of God instructing her to kill her children. The Los Angeles mother allegedly murdered 3 of her kids because she believed they were possessed by demons. She was taken to a hospital while struggling with medical staff and shouting for her Bible. Angela Flores, 38, was later charged with 3 counts of murder in the deaths of Natalie Flores, 12, Kevin Yanez, 10, and Nathan Yanez, 8. She was held on a bail of $6 million. Flores confessed to attacking her children repeatedly because she believed she could expel the demons from their bodies. She admitted to killing them with the assistance of a 16-year-old boy, identified as her son by authorities. He was also arrested on suspicion of murder, although charges against him were not announced by prosecutors. Police responded to a report of assault with a deadly weapon at Flores' home on Victory Boulevard around 7:40 a.m. on Sunday, May 8, 2022. Flores' 3 other children, who lived out of state with their father, were unharmed. Neighbors reported that Flores had been behaving erratically the previous night, holding a Bible, screaming, praying and lighting candles. LAPD Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton stated that Flores was taken to a hospital around midnight and the bodies of the 3 children were discovered at the home 7 hours later. The fire department responded to a medical assistance request from the police at 12:48 a.m. and transported Flores to the hospital. Authorities have not disclosed the exact details of how the children died. However, it has been revealed that Flores shared details about her personal life in a private Facebook group called LA Mommies, where she disclosed her battle with breast cancer. Flores made her first post on July 20, 2021, introducing herself as Angela, a mother of 6 who recently moved from Kansas City. She mentioned undergoing breast cancer treatment and expressed a desire to make friends for activities like hiking, going to the Korean spa, having lunch, and going to the beach. She mentioned having 4 children still at home, aged 16, 11, 9, and 7. Dr. Ariel Orion, a Beverly Hills plastic surgeon, disclosed that Flores had reached out to him via Facebook for help with breast reconstruction. He was shocked by the news of the tragedy and expressed disbelief at what had happened. However, he did not confirm whether Flores had been his patient due to patient confidentiality. According to public records and photos on Facebook, Flores had previously worked as a real estate agent and for an event promotions company in the Kansas City area. Court records from Kansas City revealed that she had previously used the names Angela Medina Corona and that her ex-husband, Jacob Corona, filed for divorce in 2005. Despite her past activities and interactions, Flores' actions in killing her children suggest a sudden and overwhelming shift in her mental perspective, as observed by Dr. Orion. Flores' ex-husband, Jacob Corona, shared with reporters that she called him nearly a week before the incident and made some strange comments about God. He expressed concern, mentioning they had married from 2001 to 2007, but had not spoken regularly since their divorce. Corona recalled that Flores was not particularly religious before, but had started talking about death during their conversation. Despite his doubts, he didn't think much of it at the time. He also mentioned that they have a child together who was not involved in the incident and didn't live with Flores. A nearby resident, Priscilla Canales, recalled hearing a woman yelling about abuse around 10:30 p.m. on Saturday, May 7th. Later identified as Flores, she saw her walk to a neighbor's yard, where she opened a Bible and lit candles. When paramedics arrived and tried to help her, Flores resisted, asking for her Bible. Canales described the situation as disturbing, recalling the intensity of Flores' screams. The LA County Department of Children and Family Services expressed deep sadness over the children's deaths in the San Fernando Valley. On Facebook, Flores described herself as a digital creator, with her last post on May 1st featuring an image of a sign that defines an evangelist. In response to her post, one user commented with a statement that suggested Flores' actions were unforgivable, considering the tragedy she caused without showing any remorse. Meanwhile, in Mississippi, another tragic incident occurred. Michaelia Jolly was charged with capital murder without bail for the death of her baby girl, Khaleesi Lockie Jolly. Police reported that on May 12, 2022, Jolly repeatedly threw her baby onto the road with force. After the incident, Jolly fled into the woods, where she was later arrested by police. The tragic incident unfolded when several 911 calls alerted Pearl police to a woman who had thrown a baby onto the roadway at 775 North Berman Road. Officers rushed to the scene to find another woman holding the badly injured baby. First responders provided immediate aid and rushed the baby, Khaleesi, to the Children's Hospital of Mississippi in Jackson. Khaleesi initially remained in critical condition, but sadly, she succumbed to her injuries on Saturday at 4:33 p.m. Surveillance footage revealed Khaleesi's mother running through the trailer park around the time of the incident. The community was deeply shocked and devastated by the tragedy. The initial charges against the mother, Michaelia Jolly, included child abuse and attempted murder. However, after Khaleesi's death, these charges were upgraded to child abuse and capital murder by Rankin County Judge Richard Redfein. The Pearl Police Department expressed deep sorrow over the incident, with many unanswered questions as to why it happened. Despite the tragedy, they hoped that the legal process would bring healing and justice to the community. District Attorney Bubba Bramlett stated that Jolly could face life in prison or even the death penalty if convicted. Jolly was reported to be on suicide watch while held in isolation at the Rankin County Jail. During her initial court appearance, she remained silent and showed no signs of remorse. Police described Khaleesi's abuse as deliberate and cruel, emphasizing the need for sympathy and justice for the victim. While officials did not provide a motive for the incident, it was clear that Khaleesi's death was a heartbreaking tragedy that shook the community to its core. One neighbor expressed disbelief at the tragic events, stating, "I don't understand." She speculated that something might have gone wrong, such as postpartum depression, as the mother seemed to be a caring parent. She struggled to comprehend what could have led to such a terrible outcome. In another horrifying incident in Philadelphia during the same month, a woman named Trin Gwynn, age 38, shot her 2 sons at their duplex residence on Timber Ridge Road in Upper Makefield, Bucks County. The boys, aged 9 and 13, were critically wounded and later pronounced dead a week after the shooting. Investigations revealed that Nguyen had planned the killings in advance, as evidenced by a handwritten will found at the scene, dated more than a week before the tragic event. Despite efforts to save them, the boys succumbed to their injuries at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, where they had been transferred from St. Mary Medical Center. Following the tragic shooting, the charges against the mother were elevated to first-degree murder for the deaths of her sons, 13-year-old Jeffrey J.T. Tinney and 9-year-old Nelson Tinney. District Attorney Matthew Weinstraub condemned the act, calling it unconscionable and horrific. He vowed to pursue justice for the victims. In an updated criminal complaint, prosecutors revealed that Nguyen had written a will dated April 25th, outlining instructions for an unnamed recipient regarding the boy's ashes and her own, suggesting she had contemplated taking her own life. Additionally, a search warrant on Nguyen's 2018 Toyota Sienna uncovered a handwritten note urging the reader to call 911 as her children were dead in their bed at the Timber Ridge Road residence. After the shooting, Nguyen attempted to flee but was disarmed by her landlord's 22-year-old son, Johnny Melchiondo, who wrestled the gun away when she tried to shoot him. Police reported that the gun malfunctioned twice. Nguyen then fled in her van, briefly crossing into New Jersey before returning to the area. She was arrested hours later in the parking lot of the Washington Crossing United Methodist Church. During her initial arraignment, Nguyen denied fleeing from the home and claimed she had gone to New Jersey to obtain narcotics, which she later ingested in a suicide attempt. She informed investigators that she had not previously used drugs. A search warrant was executed on the minivan, leading detectives to discover .38 caliber ammunition, several empty and full suspected heroin packages, and swabs of suspected blood, among other evidence. Before attempting to shoot Melchiondo, Nguyen asked him to take a box of photos to her ex-husband, Edward Tinney. Melchiondo, who is Tinney's nephew and resides in the other half of the duplex with his mother, Karina Tinney Melchiondo, the property owner, intervened in the situation. Multiple law enforcement agencies, including Bucks County detectives, Upper Makefield Township Police, Lower Makefield Township Police, Newtown Township Police, Newtown Borough Police, and the Central Bucks Crime Scene Unit, were involved in the investigation to locate, guide, and secure the scene. At around 11:30 a.m. on the day of the murders, law enforcement found Nguyen inside her minivan. She was taken into custody and then transported to St. Mary's Medical Center due to indications that she was under the influence. According to court records, Nguyen was facing eviction in the months leading up to the shooting. She owed more than $11,000 in back rent to Karina Tinney Melchiondo, the property owner. As part of a property settlement, Nguyen had been allowed to temporarily reside at the duplex with her 2 boys until she found a new home. However, she stopped paying rent, leading Melchiondo to initiate eviction proceedings last November. Nguyen was scheduled to be evicted on May 3rd, the day after the shooting occurred. Nguyen was also reportedly involved in a custody battle with her ex-husband, who expressed concern that she might use money from their divorce settlement to take one of the boys to Vietnam and not return. The 2 boys, both students in the Council Rock School District, were honored during a vigil at the Washington Crossing United Methodist Church. Prosecutors did not provide additional information on why they believe Nguyen might have targeted her children. In addition to the first-degree murder charges, Nguyen faced additional charges, including attempted homicide, a weapons offense and possession of a controlled substance, as indicated by court records. Nguyen was arraigned before Magisterial District Judge Michael W. Petrucci on 2 counts of first-degree murder, along with 1 count each of attempted homicide, possession of an instrument of crime and possession of a controlled substance. She was incarcerated at the Bucks County Correctional Facility from the day she was charged with attempted homicide and was denied bail due to the premeditated nature of her offenses. Now, on to our final and most senseless case. In Illinois on Saturday, September 11, 2021, a woman named Fallon Harris, residing in the Chicago South Side area, shot her 12-year-old son. The tragic incident unfolded during a court hearing where Cook County State's Attorney Eugene Wood alleged that the ordeal began mid-morning Saturday when Harris confronted her son about a missing digital memory card she had removed from her car the previous Friday night. Wood did not disclose the contents of the memory card. According to prosecutors, the situation escalated when Caden, the son, informed his mother that he didn't know the whereabouts of the memory card. Allegedly, Harris then pointed a silver revolver at her son and fired a non-fatal shot to his head. Wood stated that audio evidence retrieved from the home security system indicated that the first gunshot left the 12-year-old boy conscious and crying. Police alleged that while Caden was lying on the floor, Harris took a phone call and then returned to demand the memory card once again. According to Wood, an incident captured on the security camera showed Caden informing his mother again that he didn't know where the memory card was. It was then that she fired a second fatal shot at her son. Subsequently, Wood claims Harris called 2 family members and confessed to them that she had shot her son over the missing memory card. Those relatives promptly notified the police who, along with the boy's father, met officers at the crime scene. Upon their arrival, Harris allegedly confessed to the shooting. Family members affirmed that they informed the police about Fallon Harris's call and her confession. The family stated that Harris had been exhibiting paranoid behavior for some time leading up to the tragic incident. When responding officers arrived, they found the boy lying on the kitchen floor with multiple gunshot wounds to his head. Caden was rushed to the University of Chicago Medical Center where he was pronounced dead, according to Wood and the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. Several hours after the shooting, officers were seen entering and exiting the brick house, some carrying bags of evidence. Tearful relatives later arrived, consoling each other across the street from the scene. Harris was subsequently charged with first-degree murder. She was denied bail during a brief court hearing, during which the judge ordered her to undergo a mental health evaluation. According to prosecutors, Harris possessed a concealed carry license and owned 2 guns. Lavelle Ingram, the boy's father and Harris's estranged husband, informed reporters that there had been concerns about her mental state for some time. Ingram mentioned that Harris had attended her first therapy session ever on Friday, the 10th of September 2021, just 1 day before the alleged murder. "We didn't know this was going to happen," stated the boy's father. "We had urged her to seek help. I guess it finally reached its boiling point. She loved Caden more than anything in the world." Despite their separation, Ingram revealed that he and Harris had remained close for the sake of their children. Ingram shared that Caden was passionate about pro wrestling, anime, video games, and history. He expressed his grief, saying, "I'm losing a young god. I'm losing a young genius. I'm losing everything I had in this world." Everything would directly acknowledge Harris's mental state, noting that family members reported she had been displaying paranoid behavior and complaining that people were out to get her. Harris was disruptive and combative early in the hearing and later broke down and appeared to cry when she was allowed to speak. In the hours following her arrest, Wood said Harris broke down in tears and asked, "Can I talk to my mama?" Judge Mary Marubio ultimately ordered Harris to be held without bail, as Wood had requested. Marubio also signed the health care order, allowing Harris to be evaluated. Meanwhile, Ingram said he feared his estranged wife had grown detached from reality. He stated, "I don't think she even understands what happened." Ingram called for more awareness and preventative treatment for mental illness in the aftermath of his son's loss. So what do you think could drive a mom to kill her kids? Is it mental illness, pure evil, or just evidence that some women shouldn't be allowed to have or be around children at all? Story 2. woman who kills her children. We all know about groups of people with strong religious beliefs, and sometimes bad things happen because of them. But in 2019, something really shocking occurred. 2 kids went missing and several people lost their lives. Before we begin, we want to send our thoughts and prayers to all the people who became victims of this crazy couple. Now, let's go to San Bernardino, California. Lori Noreen Cox, who later changed her last name to Vallow, was born in 1973 on June 26th to Janice and Barry Cox. She had a big family with brothers named Alex and Adam, and 3 sisters, Stacy, Laura, and Summer. Lori's childhood was normal, but let's fast forward to 1992. She married her high school boyfriend, Nelson Yanes, when she was 19. Even though they were deeply in love, things went wrong after a year, and their beautiful love story ended in divorce. But Lori didn't stay single for long. 2 years later, in 1995, she became a wife again, marrying a man named William. Things seemed good, and they even had a son named Colby Ryan. However, a pattern emerged, and in 1998, Lori divorced William. 3 more years passed, and Lori decided to become a wife for the 3rd time. In 2001, she married Joseph Ryan. The couple had a child on September 24, 2002. This time, Lori welcomed a daughter named Tylee into the world. However, it seemed like the 3rd time wasn't a charm because in 2004, Lori asked for a divorce. The 2 didn't part ways amicably. Lori told her brother Alex that her ex-husband was abusive towards her. In response, Alex threatened Joseph and even attacked him with a taser because of his actions. Her brother ended up with a 90-day prison sentence and 5 years of probation. Despite the tumultuous relationships, Lori was a very attractive woman and caught the attention of many admirers. In 2004, she even took part in the Miss Texas beauty pageant. However, Lori was a free spirit and had a tendency to be impatient. She wouldn't tolerate things not going her way and often had a selfish attitude. More often than not, her partners would end up on the losing side of any argument. By 2005, Lori found herself single again. Even though she had 2 kids, only Tylee was in her care full-time. During that year, she met another man. Lori fell in love again, but this time, her new soon-to-be husband would play a crucial role in the unfolding case. Charles Vallow, Lori's new love interest, was a hard-working and handsome man from a big family. Born on August 17, 1956, Charles met Lori when he was 49, but he appeared youthful and full of energy. The pattern emerged once more, and on February 4, 2006, Lori heard wedding bells for the 4th time. Charles already had 2 children from a previous marriage, Nicholas and Zachary. Combine them with Lori's son Colby and daughter Tylee, and the married couple formed a family of 6. This time, things seemed to be going well. The family was happy, Charles had a decent income, and they were all in a good place. In 2014, the couple decided to adopt Charles's grandnephew, Joshua Jackson Vallow, affectionately known as JJ. By then, the 3 boys were living elsewhere, so Lori and Charles only had Tylee and JJ to take care of. Lori didn't work, and she was someone who easily got bored. Seeking a new adventure, the family of 4 packed their bags and moved to Hawaii to start a new business. They opened a juice bar called Juice Island in Princeville, on the island of Kauai. Everyone appeared to enjoy their time there, with Lori and her daughter sharing beautiful shots of the scenery on social media. During their time in Hawaii, Lori became fascinated by a series of books called Standing in Holy Places. Already a Mormon and deeply religious due to her upbringing, these books intensified her beliefs. Reading them brought about changes in her lifestyle and overall demeanor. Despite the idyllic surroundings, their business venture was not successful. After a couple of years, in late 2016, they had no choice but to move back to Arizona. This marked the beginning of the downfall in the Vallow household. Lori remained invested in the series of books, this time written by Chad Daybell, a religious author. In 2018, Lori and her friend Melanie attended an event called Preparing a People. This gathering turned out to be where she met the author of the books that seemingly changed her life and how she saw the world around her. For those questioning why they would attend a preparedness conference, Lori and her friend discussed preparing a statement to share upon their return. During the event, Lori and her friend engaged with Chad Daybell, the author of the influential books. They discussed their beliefs, and Chad even expressed a fondness for Lori, claiming they had been married in 7 previous lifetimes. Despite the event ending, Lori and Chad continued messaging and staying in touch. A few weeks later, when Charles was away on a business trip, Lori invited Chad Daybell to her home. However, the gathering wasn't romantic. Melanie and other followers of Chad joined them, and they spent the evening delving into the deeper meanings of God and various religious theories and teachings. Chad couldn't help but focus on Lori, making her the center of attention in their discussions. Chad Daybell had always been an eccentric figure. Born on August 11, 1968 in Provo, Utah, he grew up in a peculiar way. During his teen years, he met a girl named Tamara, and by the age of 22, they were married. 2 years later, in 1992, he graduated with a degree in journalism. Chad Daybell's life took an interesting turn. After working as a gravedigger at a local cemetery, he ventured into entrepreneurship in 2004 by starting his own book company named Spring Creek Books. About half of the books he published were ones that Lori had become obsessed with during her previous marriage to Tamara. Chad and Tamara had 5 children, and the family relocated to Rexburg, Idaho, with Chad claiming that God had directed them to do so. Chad viewed the world uniquely, categorizing people as either light or dark. In his perspective, dark individuals were from Earth but followers of Satan, while light people were followers of Jesus. During a gathering, Chad informed Lori that she was an eternal being with 21 previous lives, 5 of which were on planet Earth. Lori not only embraced these teachings, but became genuinely excited about them. She developed a profound obsession with her newfound purpose and with Chad himself. Even after the gathering, Lori and Chad continued to exchange text messages and emails. In 2018, Chad emailed her a chart related to the categories of light and dark, and he went as far as grading her family based on the criteria he provided. Fast forward to 2019, and the vow marriage was in jeopardy as Lori immersed herself more deeply into the religion that was gradually evolving into a cult. She began to distance herself from everyday life. Lori strongly believed in the concept of light and dark people, often referring to the latter as zombies. She held on to the idea that she was an eternal being destined to lead the 144,000, a group believed to have special protection from God. As her beliefs intensified, conflicts between Lori and Charles escalated. On January 31st, Charles returned from a business trip to find that he couldn't contact his wife and children for the last 2 days. Upon arriving home, he discovered the locks had been changed, his clothes were in the trash, and his bank account had been drained of almost $35,000. Alarmed and with no other recourse, he called the police. When the officers arrived, Charles explained the situation, expressing his concern about not being able to reach his kids for 2 days. He revealed that Lori seemed to have lost touch with reality, believing herself to be a resurrected being and a god, focusing on the prophecy of the 144,000. Charles emphasized that she had taken all the money from their bank account and had even taken his truck from the airport. The situation had become a cause for immediate concern. Charles explained to the police that he had just flown in from Houston to Dallas, and a friend was trying to pick him up. He had gone to the community bridges or something to file a report, and they had ordered a pickup. When asked about what made Lori a danger to herself and others, Charles disclosed that Lori had threatened to murder him. Charles clarified that she had threatened him with murder, saying she didn't know who he was and that she could use her powers to kill him. The police tried to understand the situation and asked if this was a recent development or if it had been ongoing. Charles revealed that it had been going on for about 4 or 5 years, escalating recently. Lori would go to the temple every day, claiming to speak with Moroni and Jesus Christ, who would guide her actions. In the last couple of days, Lori told Charles that he wasn't Charles, but someone named Nick Schneider. She claimed to have information from people in Utah who told her about her past lives, probation, and marriages to figures like Moroni and James the Just. Charles acknowledged that this information was foreign to him, and while he used LDS, Latter-day Saints, terms, he recognized the craziness of the situation. Charles had previously informed the police about Lori's threats, but they were not taken seriously at that time. Lori would then disappear, remaining off the radar for a total of 58 days. During this period, Charles took action and filed for divorce. During the 58-day period when Lori disappeared, it was later revealed that she had flown to Hawaii with her daughter, Tylee. Even after their return, Lori kept her distance from the rest of the family. However, this was just the beginning of her disturbing behavior. On July 11, 2019, the police received a call from a man reporting that he had killed someone. The perpetrator was Alex Cox, Lori's older brother. In the call, Alex claimed that he had gotten into a fight with his brother-in-law, Charles Vallow, and had shot him in self-defense. The dispatcher asked for details, and Alex mentioned that Charles had come at him with a bat. When asked about Lori's whereabouts, Alex said he believed she was taking her son to school. The police instructed him to come out with his hands empty and walk outside. They confirmed the front door was unlocked and officers were on their way. This call marked a tragic turn of events, and it became clear that Lori's family was caught in a web of violence and disturbing incidents. A few minutes after the call, police arrived at Lori's new address, where she had moved just several days prior. At the time of the murder, Lori was taking JJ to school, and Alex and Tylee were inside the house. Charles seemingly arrived at the house and got into an argument with Lori's brother, Alex. During their exchange, Tylee fetched a baseball bat, and Charles took it out of her hand before hitting Alex in the back of the head. In response, Alex grabbed his gun and shot Charles multiple times in the chest. Charles died there in his living room, and his body was discovered by the police several minutes later. While one might expect shock or distress after such a violent incident, Lori displayed an eerie calmness. She acted as if nothing had happened and even laughed and made jokes during her police interrogation. However, the strangeness didn't end there. A few hours after Charles's death, Lori, in her own house, decided to host a pool party at the crime scene. This behavior raised eyebrows and added to the bizarre circumstances surrounding the incident. During Alex's police interrogation, officers noticed something suspicious in his statement. He claimed that Charles had hit him over the head with a baseball bat, but upon inspection, the injury appeared minor. Considering Charles was a semi-professional baseball player, he could have caused significant harm if he had wanted to. Alex's story was later questioned in court, but he was released without further investigation. The very next day after Charles's death, Nicholas and Zachary, Charles's sons, were informed of their father's passing. Lori chose to relay the news via text, deciding not to go through the trouble of making a phone call. Shortly after these events, Lori, along with JJ and Tylee, moved out of Arizona. Their destination, Rexburg, Idaho, where Chad Daybell lived. The family of 3 settled in the area, but the story took more unsettling turns. In early September, Lori enrolled JJ in school, but surprisingly, she did not enroll Tylee. On September 8, 2019, Lori took both kids to Yellowstone National Park, accompanied by her brother Alex. In pictures, they appeared happy, but this outing marked the last time Tylee would be seen. Oddly, Lori didn't report Tylee's disappearance to the police. Since Tylee had moved to another state a couple of weeks earlier, her absence went unnoticed. Meanwhile, JJ started school and seemed to adjust well. 2 weeks later, on September 17th, a neighbor's doorbell camera recorded footage of JJ playing with a friend in the neighborhood. Just like Tylee, this would be the last time JJ was seen by anyone. On September 23rd, Lori called JJ's school and unenrolled him from the program. When the principal questioned her decision, Lori simply stated that she would homeschool him herself, ending the discussion. The mysterious disappearances of Tylee and JJ raised concerns, but Lori's actions only added to the growing unease surrounding the family. JJ and Tylee were missing, and as the months passed, friends and family became increasingly concerned about their whereabouts. When asked about the children, Lori would assure people that they were doing fine and provide false locations, claiming they were at a friend's house or visiting relatives. During this period, 2 significant events occurred. On October 1st, 2019, Lori rented a unit just outside Rexburg. Witnesses observed her storing the children's bikes, belongings, and blankets in the unit. The following day, she was seen at the storage facility again, this time in the company of Chad Daybell. Throughout the month, Chad, Lori, and her brother Alex visited the storage unit a total of 9 times. The second notable event took place on October 9th. Chad's wife, Tammy, was in her driveway unloading groceries when a masked man with a paintball gun approached her. The man began firing, and Tamara screamed for her husband. The assailant fled, and Tamara survived the attack. She shared the incident on Facebook. However, just 10 days later, on October 19th, Tamara was found dead in her bed. Chad Daybell called 911, reporting that he had discovered her lifeless. Detectives investigated the scene and initially concluded that Tamara's death was natural. When asked about an autopsy, Chad declined, raising suspicions surrounding the circumstances of Tamara's demise. Chad's refusal for an autopsy on Tamara's death left authorities with no choice but to accept his decision without further probing. Seemingly unaffected by his wife's death, Chad and Lori flew to Hawaii 2 weeks later, where they got married on the beach in all-white attire. The media and police couldn't ignore the peculiar chain of events and started keeping a close eye on the newlyweds. During and after their honeymoon, when questioned about their family, and Chad and Lori began lying. Chad claimed Lori had never had any kids, while Lori stated that Tylee had died a few years back without providing any explanation. On November 26th, police decided to conduct a welfare check on JJ. They visited Lori's house and requested to see him, but Lori claimed he wasn't at home. She insisted that JJ was back in Arizona with her friend Melanie. The police quickly involved and cooperated with the Arizona Police Department. When confronted, Melanie expressed surprise, stating she hadn't seen JJ in weeks. However, her next statement raised alarms. Melanie revealed that before the authorities arrived, Lori and Chad had called her, asking her to lie and say that JJ was with her. The next day, armed with a search warrant, the police headed to Lori's house, but she and Chad were gone. The couple had returned to Hawaii. Between December 2019 and January 2020, the police officially declared JJ and Tylee missing. They raided Chad's house, seizing his computers, journals, and cell phones. Lori was notified that she needed to bring the children to the police station within 5 days, or she risked arrest. Amidst this investigation, on December 12th, Lori's brother, Alex, suddenly died. The cause was attributed to blood clots, and his death was ruled as resulting from natural causes. Lori, failing to bring the kids to the police station, was finally arrested on February 20th, 2020. Her bail was set at $5 million, and she was extradited to Rexburg, where she remained in custody. Despite Lori being behind bars, the authorities still didn't know the whereabouts of the missing children or what had happened to them. After 4 agonizing months, on June 9, 2020, Rexburg police arrived at Chad's door at 7 in the morning. Armed with a search warrant for his 1960s home on 4 acres of land, investigators spent a few hours at the property. Soon, they made a grim discovery: human remains buried next to Chad's red barn. Initially unidentified, a day later, it was confirmed that the remains belonged to JJ and Tylee through DNA testing. The long-awaited discovery brought devastating news to the families and friends who had hoped for a different outcome. JJ and Tylee were found, but unfortunately, their fate was not the one their loved ones had wished for. In Rexburg, moments of shared grief and condolences unfolded on Wednesday as neighbors, community members, and the media expressed sympathy to the grandparents of JJ Varlow. The heartbreak of the situation resonated through the community, and people expressed their sorrow for the family's pain. Community member Janice Summers, who closely followed the case, captured a video of Kay and Larry Woodcock, JJ's grandparents, walking near the Daybell property where they believed the remains of their grandson and his sister Tylee were buried. The video captured the devastating impact of the situation on the family and the community. On the day of the discovery, Chad Daybell attempted to flee, but was quickly apprehended by police. After running just 1 mile from his property, he was tackled and arrested. Chad was charged with concealment and alteration of evidence. Both Lori and Chad remained in prison, with their trial set for 2023. The community and the affected families were left grappling with the tragedy that had unfolded in their midst. After the disappearance of JJ and Tylee, witnesses reported that Lori began referring to her children as zombies. This disturbing terminology aligns with Lori's previous characterization of dark individuals as zombies. The tragic fate of the children might be connected to these ominous beliefs and practices. Story 3. Unresolved Mystery of Megan's Death. In August 2018, Megan Cordy, age 27, and her mother Jennifer Weathers attended the wedding of a close family friend in Yamhill County, Oregon. What was supposed to be a joyous evening filled with dancing and celebration took a dramatic turn. While journeying home that night, something unexpected occurred to Megan. The truth of what transpired is known only to 3 individuals. Sadly, one of them is no longer with us to share their account. Another suggests that Megan simply stepped out of the car and disappeared, while the third, just a tender 3-year-old at the time, sat in her car seat witnessing her mother for the final time. She was too young to articulate what truly happened. The circumstances surrounding how Megan Cordy ended up at the base of an embankment along Dayton Road are fraught with discrepancies and deep-seated frustration. This is her narrative. Megan Cordy was born in December 1990 to parents Jennifer Weathers and Anton Cordy. She had a younger brother named Jacob. Not much is known about Megan's childhood or upbringing. Her father, who went by Tony, was the former Clackamas fire captain, and she lived in Oregon. Megan welcomed a beautiful little girl into the world in 2015, naming her Gia. Gia was Megan's entire world. There was nothing she wouldn't do for her, and the pair were extremely close. Megan's Aunt Tracy described her niece as the type of person who loved to make others smile. She didn't take life too seriously and would happily act silly if she knew it would cheer someone up. One of the first things people would notice about Megan was her brilliant smile. As cliché as it may sound, she really did light up a room. On August 18th, Megan, her mother Jennifer, and her 3-year-old daughter Gia attended a family friend's wedding at Heiser Farms, an event's venue and pumpkin patch located in a rural area. Serene and charming, it seemed like the perfect place to celebrate a couple's love with close friends and family. The day before, Megan and her mom had a disagreement about who would drive to the wedding venue, an unfamiliar area to them. Jennifer suggested Megan use her own vehicle so she could take Gia back if she got tired and couldn't stay for Jennifer's evening of partying. In the end, Jennifer was the one who drove them there. Whether either of the women had struggles with alcohol remains unclear, but looking back at what unfolded, it's evident that alcohol played a significant role. The wedding ceremony was beautiful, followed by a lively reception. Drinks were flowing, and everyone seemed to be having a great time, except for Megan and Jennifer, who had been drinking. Witnesses observed the two getting into a heated argument about something. Jennifer, allegedly visibly intoxicated, was described as swaying and rated between a 6 to 8 on a scale of drunkenness from 1 to 10. Definitely not in a state to drive. Around 10 p.m., Gia started to feel tired. At just 3 years old, it's understandable why Megan wouldn't want to stay at a noisy reception with a sleepy toddler who couldn't settle down because of the music and unfamiliar surroundings. However, Jennifer wanted to prolong their stay at the party. She reportedly expressed to Megan that her prediction about having to leave early because of Gia had indeed come true. When they left, Jennifer was driving. Megan sat in the front seat, and little Gia was securely strapped into her car seat in the back. The argument continued inside the vehicle. After driving a short distance, Jennifer stopped and Megan got out. Her cell phone pinged in this location, which is how the authorities know this occurred. They carried on arguing before Jennifer convinced Megan to get back into the car. This time she was sitting with Gia in the back seat. While on the road, Megan called her boyfriend, and he could hear the argument still going on between the pair in the background. It was intense, with screaming involved. Some reports suggest Megan told her boyfriend that Jennifer was drunk. Once that phone call ended, Megan's boyfriend would never speak to her or see her alive again. According to Jennifer's account to the authorities in the days after this tragic car ride, Megan, angry due to their argument, demanded she stop the car so she could get out. Jennifer did just that, and Megan exited, leaving her phone and shoes in the car. Jennifer shouted out of the driver's side window for Megan, but when she turned the car around to look for her, Megan was nowhere to be seen. Jennifer then spent the next 30 minutes driving up and down this section of road, looking for Megan, before deciding to go home, stating that she wanted to get Gia back home. Jennifer believed Megan either got a lift with someone or made it back to the wedding venue. The next morning, on August 19th, Jennifer wakes up and finds that Megan is not back. She decides to see if she can report her missing, but doesn't do so by calling 911. Instead, Jennifer dials the non-emergency line. In the call, she states she spent 2 hours that morning looking for Megan, but has been unable to locate her. This call has sparked much debate, from Jennifer's choice of words to her tone of voice. While she does appear calm during the conversation, it's important to recognize that people handle stress differently. However, the mention of checking jails and hospitals does raise eyebrows. If Jennifer truly believed her daughter might have been arrested or seriously injured, one would expect a greater sense of urgency. Moreover, once those possibilities are ruled out, concerns typically intensify rather than diminish. Now, there's the worry that Megan could be injured somewhere without a means of seeking help. Or worse, she could have ended up in the company of someone dangerous. Authorities took Megan's sudden disappearance very seriously. Exiting a car at night on a dark, unlit road in an unfamiliar rural area seemed like a dangerous scenario. An appeal for volunteers was issued to assist in the search for Megan, and her image was circulated throughout the local community. 300 volunteers and emergency workers scoured the woods, rivers, and farmlands where Megan was last seen. Yet there was no sign of Megan along this route. To illustrate the area's scale, on the day Megan vanished, she had briefly visited a store where a family friend works, not far from the wedding venue. Megan Spencer, the family friend, complimented Megan on her outfit, a blue floral jumpsuit, to which Megan politely replied, "Thank you." Megan Spencer was shocked to hear about the disappearance, but not at the fact that someone could go missing in this area. Well, if she was barefoot and it's 10:30 p.m. at night, it's pitch black down there. There's no streetlights, no nothing, she remarked. By the end of the first day, Megan's family and friends were devastated to hear that there was no news. She was still missing, and time was of the essence. Given the strange circumstances surrounding Megan's disappearance, and the fact that the authorities knew who the last person she was seen with was, it's not surprising that they wanted to speak further with Jennifer Weathers. But first, they wanted to search her car. They found Megan's cell phone and shoes in the front seat, where Megan had first been sitting when she left the wedding venue. And while the fact that Megan had left her phone was alarming, there was something far more worrying inside the car. A clump of blonde hair in the front seat. The roots were still attached, showing they had been pulled out, not cut. Now it seemed the argument that Jennifer mentioned was far more serious than she had let on. The following clip shows some of Jennifer's questioning, which was done while she was hooked up to a lie detector test. The investigators know that these results cannot be used in court, but they can help point them to the truth. Now it was right before she got out of the car. We had already started driving, and she was yelling at me, and she just yanked my head back, and I slammed on the brakes, and then I yelled at her, "What are you doing?" She is in the car, and I reached back and hit her arm, trying to make her let go of my hair. As mentioned at the start of this case, only 3 people knew what happened that day. We don't know for a fact what parts of this story Jennifer is saying are true or not, but it is clear she is laying all of the blame here on Megan. People get into arguments all the time, and while getting physical is never the answer, Jennifer seems to be absolving her part of the argument while making it as if Megan went crazy in front of Gia. From all the sources available, Megan was an excellent mother to her daughter, and her acting violent in front of her for no reason seems out of character. I also want to point out the long pause between Jennifer's last statement there. This is a classic example of filling the silence. Jennifer is uncomfortable, despite trying to come across as calm and collected. If she was recounting the facts as they happened and she was confident in her recollection or version of events, Jennifer would not have paused for 12 long seconds to add that she hit Megan's arm away. And when she finally let go of my hair, I started slowing the car down, which is when she started opening the door and saying, "I'm gonna get out." Oh, first she had called her boyfriend. "Did you hit her in the arm?" "How many times?" "Oh, I don't know. I just reached back until she let go of my hair." "Okay. Are you sure that you were hitting her arm?" No. You were just hitting something? I was just reaching back and... Okay. I mean, it had to have been her arm because she would have been like this. Okay. Yeah, but she called her boyfriend first. Okay. And wanted him to come get her. And that was before she pulled my hair. Okay. His name is Brendan. She calls him Burr. Jennifer tells the investigator that Megan called her boyfriend and asked him to come and get her. But she does not mention why or when this occurred. Given the wedding guests who said Jennifer was significantly intoxicated, was Megan worried about how her mother was driving? If she was, why would she leave her daughter in the car with her, cursing back and forth at one another and really getting ugly like that? I mean, oh, he asked me? Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, she called him, I want you to come get me, and he must have said no. And then, whose phone did she call him with? Hers. Okay. And this is when she pulls your hair not too long after that? Yeah. What predicated that? Who knows? I have no idea. Before you got in the middle of yelling at one another and she pulls your hair? Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. Jennifer's response, yeah, I'm sure, shows her recollection of the events that night is not clear. And this will be because of her level of intoxication. If she was sober and the pair had been in an argument, a so-called out-of-the-blue act like grabbing hold of your hair would have stuck out enough to remember what led up to it. Okay. Yeah. So then, after he wouldn't come pick her up and she pulls my hair, is he using derogatory terms towards one another? Is that... No, I don't call Megan names, yeah. Does she call you names? Oh, of course. Not of course, but yes, she does. Okay. Why would Jennifer need to paint Megan out to be the bad guy in this situation? Her claiming that she doesn't call me names, and then a second later responding that Megan, of course, calls her derogatory names, is strange behavior for a mother whose daughter is still missing. She has already admitted they were in an argument, but still continues to put the blame onto her missing daughter. This behavior possibly wouldn't stand out hardly if Jennifer's general demeanor wasn't so cheerful. Once again, her daughter is missing, trying to get her to let go of my hair. She finally let go of my hair, starts slowing the car down. She's like, I'm going to get out. And I'm like, you're not getting out of the car. You're not getting out of the car. And I was almost to a stop. And she started opening the door, which is why it's slowing down. And I was almost to a stop. And she just opened it and jumped out. So then I stopped the car and got out and walked around it, closed her door that she had jumped out of. And I was looking for her. I couldn't see her anywhere. I'm calling her name, and she's not answering me. I can't leave the car because she is in it. So I'm just calling her name, get back in the car, and I can't see her anywhere. So I got back in the car and turned it around because I figured with the direction she jumped out, she'd be heading the opposite way. So I got back in the car and turned around and tried to find her with the headlights. I had the windows rolled down and I'm just calling her name, calling her name, calling her name. She's not answering, and I couldn't see anything. How fast do you think you were going when she jumped out? Oh, I mean, like, literally, I was almost to a stop. Okay. Like less than 5 miles an hour? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because as soon as she started saying she was going to get out and started messing with the door handle, I started coming to a stop. And you couldn't see her? Did you hear anything when she jumped? You didn't hear an ouch or anything like that? No. Then you went back to the car, turned around, headed back towards the farm? Okay. What's the child doing? I don't know. In case that wasn't clear, Jennifer was asked what Gia was doing. After a long pause, she softly responds, I don't know. Another lengthy pause follows, and then the phrase, crying, I would imagine. So I drove back and forth, I don't know, probably for about a half an hour trying to find her. I called Burr at some point, but he didn't answer his phone. And then Gia was crying. He was there for all of that. Oh my God. Once again, Jennifer is showing concern for what Gia witnessed, and not for the fact that Megan is missing. Is this normal for Megan to flip out like this? Not so much recently. I mean, back in the day when I first got divorced and got remarried, it was a child saying just leave her about their mother is borderline plausible. When you add that that same child was apparently crying moments earlier at the confrontation she had just witnessed as her mother left her alone in the backseat of the car. It's downright impossible. Did you try and call her? Try and call Megan? Why not? I don't know. It didn't even occur to me to try and call her. Okay. I was more worried about Gia and getting Gia home. At that point, Megan wasn't my focus, Gia was. So I just drove home and I took her upstairs and put her to bed. Had Megan done this kind of stuff in the past? What kind of stuff? Jump out of your car? She'd never actually done it, but yeah, she's threatened to before. Okay. Any more drinking or anything that night for you? No, definitely not. Muscle relaxers. Anything? No. Okay. No, I was so tired already. I was exhausted. I didn't take my makeup off or anything. I never do that. I didn't take my contacts out. Okay. I just got in bed with Gia because she was asleep and I just crawled in with her and cuddled. Okay. Did that surprise you that Megan was acting the way she was acting in front of her daughter? In front of her daughter, yeah. And that she wouldn't stop. Okay. Definitely surprised me. I mean, she hadn't done anything like that before. No. And usually in text. She's an angry texter. What kind of stuff sets her off? Me. Anything I do. You know, she'd done it to me a few weeks ago when I stopped by to pick up Gia while she was at work. I met her at her work and picked her up and… Where does she work? Blue Mercury at Bridgeport. What is that? It's a cosmetic store with aesthetic services. Okay. She's an esthetician. You'd stop by to pick up? Oh, I picked up Gia and asked her what time she was going to be done with work. And she said 5:30, and so I thought, you had told me 5 before. She was like, yeah, I thought it was 5. It was 5:30, and I just kind of rolled my eyes. Because she does that a lot. Like, just doesn't know her schedule. And she's like, what? I'm like, well, I just don't understand how you never know your schedule. Like, you're 27 years old. How do you not know whether you get up at 5 or 5:30? And I woke up at about 5:30 on Sunday. On Sunday because the sun was coming out and I got up and I got dressed. And grabbed Gia and went out to look for Megan. You didn't call first? No, I had her phone. She had left her phone in the car. When did you figure that out? When I took Gia out of the back seat. I saw it on the floor. After 4 days of intensive searching, the authorities were forced to call off the search. A massive amount of manpower had gone into looking for Megan, but with still no sign of her in a lengthy radius around, where Jennifer said she got out the car, they needed to scale back. Of course, they would continue to work on Megan's case as an active investigation. By now, a fair share of suspicion had fallen on Jennifer amongst the investigators. The story she told them wasn't making sense, and when her lie detector test results came back as inconclusive, it further concerned them that she wasn't telling them the whole truth. But they would soon have a major development. On August 23rd, the day after the search for Megan was called off, a group of joggers were enjoying a brisk outing along the quiet Dayton roads when one of them noticed something down a steep embankment. It was Megan Cordier. Megan's body was discovered down a steep rocky embankment. Why hadn't the searchers been able to find her? Because Megan was found 9 miles away from where Jennifer said she got out of the car. This discovery brought a tragic end to a heartbreaking case. Megan's body was collected from the scene and transported to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy. The results would show she had suffered significant injuries. Megan's cause of death was ruled to be blunt force trauma to the head. She had suffered aortic separation, which would have caused an instant death. For the next 30 days or so, there was little to no information from the authorities regarding Megan's case. That was until they held a press conference on September 27th to give an update on the case. During this press conference, District Attorney Brad Berry detailed the events leading up to Megan's death and discussed the autopsy's findings. He informed the press that the medical examiner felt that Megan's injuries were not consistent with being hit by a car, and the lack of damage to her bare feet showed she had not walked any distance. It was also revealed that Jennifer Cannell, her second polygraph test, and from then on stopped cooperating with the investigators. Perhaps the most important piece of information to come out of the press conference was the following. Brad Berry revealed the medical examiner believes Megan exited the car when it was going at a speed greater than 5 miles per hour. However, due to the death being ruled accidental, the district attorney said there would be no criminal charges brought for her death. He The investigators and the district attorney believed that Jennifer was driving in the wrong direction after missing a turn when Megan fell or jumped out of the car. She then hit the ground before rolling down the steep embankment. Shockingly, there was none of Jennifer potentially having sped upright before Megan exited the vehicle, something that could only have come from GIA. Jennifer Weathers was charged with driving under the influence and reckless endangerment. She went to trial in October, and since Jennifer hadn't taken a breathalyzer test that night, the prosecutors would have to rely solely on the witness evidence from those who saw her at the wedding. She ended up taking a plea deal to drive drunk, facing no charges relating to the death of her daughter. The prosecutor and district attorney were open in their frustration regarding the lack of charges relating to Megan's death. They publicly stated that Jennifer had misled the police. She spent 5 days in jail and was put on 3 years of probation. GIA now lives with her father in Salem, Oregon, and Jennifer is not allowed to have any contact with her. The latest update in the case came when Megan's father sued Jennifer for $500,000 for negligence causing Megan's death while driving under the influence. He also sued the wedding venue for almost $1 million for overserving alcohol and failing to prevent Jennifer from driving while drunk. A judge dismissed this after he failed to respond to a motion by the defense. In truth, we will likely never know what happened to Megan Cordy. This is a case that will forever have far more questions than answers. And based on Jennifer's behavior, she is unlikely to ever come forward to tell a different story. Story 4. The Japanese millionaire who killed a tourist. When Lucy Blackman, an English tourist, vanished from Tokyo, her friends and family feared the worst. Little did they know, her disappearance would unveil the dark and hidden crimes of one of Japan's most notorious killers. In today's video, we'll delve into the chilling case of Joji Obara. Our story begins in the southeast of England, in the picturesque county of Kent. Kent, often referred to as the Garden of England, boasts a rich history and thriving service-based economy. While renowned for its historic cathedrals and castles, Kent is also gaining recognition for its vibrant food and wine scene. Nestled near the western border of Kent lies the quaint town of Sevenoaks, where Lucy Blackman called home. Born on September 1, 1978, Lucy was the eldest of 3 siblings, with younger sister Sophie and brother Rupert completing the family. Sadly, Lucy's childhood was marked by her parents' divorce, leading her, along with her mother, brother, and sister, to relocate within Kent. Lucy was known as a cheerful child, always brimming with energy and radiating positivity. Her meticulous planning skills shone through in her academic pursuits. After graduating from school, Lucy decided to pursue a career as a flight attendant with British Airways, enticed by the prospect of traveling the world. However, as the years passed, the constant travel and low pay took a toll on her, plunging her into financial strain and leaving her feeling drained. Like many young professionals navigating their first job, Lucy began to reassess her career path and overall direction. Despite her love for travel, the demanding nature of her role at British Airways took its toll on her finances and mental well-being. It was then that Lucy and her colleague Louise devised a plan. They realized that traveling didn't have to entail constant hopping from one country to another. They could settle in a foreign destination, secure stable employment, and improve their financial situation. Intrigued by Japan's unique culture and lifestyle, Lucy and Louise resolved to find work in the land of the rising sun to alleviate their debts. Japan, with its myriad UNESCO World Heritage Sites and deeply ingrained traditions, their decision to embark on this journey was daunting, but they drew strength from each other. They booked their tickets and embarked on their adventure to Japan. In May 2000, Lucy and Louise found themselves in the vibrant heart of Tokyo, settling into an apartment near Roppongi, renowned for its bustling nightlife and fusion of Western and Japanese cultures. They wasted no time in securing employment and soon landed jobs at a local nightclub called Casablanca, where they served as hostesses to its diverse clientele. In Japan, customs and social norms differ significantly from those in the Western world, and host and hostess clubs, known as kaibakura, epitomize this cultural distinction. Hostesses engage in activities such as lighting cigarettes, serving drinks, and engaging in conversation with patrons, creating a welcoming and entertaining atmosphere. While dancing and explicit behavior are prohibited, kaibakuras provide a space for patrons to unwind and socialize in a relaxed setting. In Roppongi, many establishments sought Western women to cater to their Japanese clientele, offering decent pay and requiring strong customer service skills. Lucy and Louise embraced the challenge, eager to immerse themselves in this unique cultural experience and improve their financial situation. As part of Casablanca Club's policies, all hostesses are encouraged to have dinner with their customers before escorting them to the club for their shift, a tradition known as a dohan in Japan. Lucy's parents expressed concern about her choice of employment, but she reassured them, emphasizing her confidence and awareness of her boundaries. She likened the job to being an air hostess on the ground. On the warm afternoon of July 1, 2000, Lucy donned her sandals and black dress as she prepared to leave. Spotting her friend Louise in the adjacent room, she informed her about her dohan with a customer from the Casablanca Club. She mentioned that he had offered her a new mobile phone in exchange, and the dinner would be brief at a restaurant near the beach. Understanding the situation, Louise advised Lucy not to be too late, as they had plans for the evening. Louise's boyfriend, Scott Fraser, was also nearby, and they were all anticipating the weekend ahead. Lucy kept in touch with Louise throughout the day, sending 3 messages. Her first, at 1:30 p.m., stated, "I am now with my lunch date." At 5 p.m., she messaged Louise again, saying, "I'm being taken to the sea." Finally, around 6:45 p.m., she sent her last message, "I'll be back in half an hour," which she also sent to Scott shortly after. However, by 8 p.m., Lucy had not returned home. As Tokyo transitioned into the night, Lucy's whereabouts remained unknown. Despite informing her friend and boyfriend of her return, she had disappeared without a trace. The situation was daunting. What do you do when your friend goes missing in a foreign city, especially one as vast and unfamiliar as Tokyo? With its population of 34.4 million people, locating one person seemed nearly impossible, especially considering the language and cultural barriers. Louise reached out to local authorities, but initial responses seemed disinterested. Days passed with no sign of Lucy. None of her colleagues at the club had seen her, and attempts to contact her went unanswered. Then, on the evening of July 3rd, Louise received a call from a man with a thick Japanese accent. He spoke English slowly but clearly, informing her Lucy can't speak right now. She's okay but won't be returning home. He has joined a new cult and is safe, undergoing training in Hatton Chiba. Back in England, Lucy's mother, Jane, reacted swiftly and intensely upon learning of Lucy's disappearance. The news filled her with terror from the moment she heard her daughter was missing. The anonymous call only heightened her concerns, as Lucy's sudden disappearance was completely out of character. The very next morning, Lucy's sister, Sophie, and her ex-boyfriend Jamie boarded a flight to Tokyo. The challenge ahead of them was vast and daunting. Despite filing a missing persons report, the police showed little interest in Lucy's case. Working with authorities over the following days proved cumbersome and frustrating. They simply didn't seem to care. Despite Lucy being an adult, her silence could indicate a life-threatening situation. Time was of the essence, adding to the extreme anxiety felt by her family. Realizing they were getting nowhere with the local police, they turned to the media instead. They hoped that by bringing Lucy's case into the public eye, it would generate tips and push the police into action. Public appearances in front of the Japanese press yielded results. As Lucy's disappearance gained notoriety and attention, the Japanese public began to offer assistance, though many tips turned out to be dead ends. As the 2-week mark approached, anxiety and hope intensified. The English and Japanese media became fixated on the case, with even Prime Minister Tony Blair and Richard Branson making appeals. Meanwhile, Lucy's family decided to enlist the help of a private investigator from England who promptly flew to Tokyo. He began scouring the streets of Roppongi and Ginza, eventually reaching Club Casablanca. One of the Western hostesses at the club came forward, revealing that she had seen Lucy with another man before her disappearance. With assistance from contacts at Scotland Yard, the investigator created an artist's impression based on the description provided, resulting in a composite image. As Lucy's disappearance became widely known, several Western women eventually came forward, sharing troubling accounts of their encounters with a man resembling the one depicted in the composite image. As more stories emerged, a disturbing pattern emerged. The man would take the women out on do-hands, promising them money and gifts before bringing them back to his apartment, spiking their drinks and assaulting them. While the name of the perpetrator varied among victims, his physical description remained consistent. A middle-aged man with medium-length hair, handsome, charming, and affluent-looking. The accumulation of accounts coupled with the police sketch provided investigators with a solid lead to pursue. However, despite this promising development, no significant breakthroughs occurred. As weeks turned into months, and Lucy's disappearance lingered, doubts arose about whether she would ever be found. Over time, public and media interest waned, diminishing the prospects of gathering crucial evidence. Surveillance footage was overwritten, fingerprints faded, and eyewitness recollections blurred. The chances of solving the case seemed increasingly slim with each passing day. In a significant development during the 4th month of the police investigation, officers finally made a breakthrough. As October approached, a key suspect emerged, Joji Obara. Although he frequented Casablanca Club, he used different aliases. Nonetheless, his description closely matched that provided by multiple victims. Born on August 10, 1952, Joji Obara hailed from a family rooted in hard work, which eventually translated into wealth. Joji's father was a Korean immigrant who arrived in Japan with little money but grand aspirations. His unwavering determination and strong work ethic propelled him to success. Starting as a scrap collector, he eventually amassed considerable wealth, establishing a business empire spanning taxi companies, pachinko parlors, and real estate ventures. Joji, along with his 2 brothers, inherited the reputation of being privileged rich kids. Shielded by his father's affluence, Joji was rewarded with a house when he enrolled in Takeo Senior High School in Kanagawa. Unfortunately, at the age of 17, his father sadly passed away, leaving Joji and his 2 brothers over 40 million yen in assets across Osaka and Tokyo, the equivalent to 25 million pounds, or $33 million. After graduating from Ko University with a degree in politics and law, he became a naturalized Japanese citizen, with his brothers moving on to become doctors. But progressing into his 30s, Joji found his everyday job to be tedious and boring. It was around this time, from 1986 to 1991, that Japan experienced an economic bubble, meaning that real estate and stock market prices began to rocket. Joji heavily invested in this, believing that prices would continue to indefinitely rise, but in the early months of 1992, this bubble burst, causing real estate prices to plunge and Japan's economy to stagnate. He lost the risk, and as a result, his firm collapsed, his fortune almost entirely gone. But he wasn't out of the fight yet. Instead, he began to use his company as a money laundering front for the Yakuza, also known as the Japanese Mafia. So, as soon as Joji was recognized as the man in the police sketch, officers began to build a case around him, and of course, keep him under close observation. And finally, in early October, he was officially arrested and charged on 5 counts of indecent assault, therefore allowing officers to raid and investigate his property. Clues, what they found inside was devastating. He had a large library full of videos of himself taking advantage of his drugged victims, with some of these crimes dating back all the way to the early 90s. He had been committing these awful acts of violence for almost an entire decade. Despite police findings and victim accusations, Joji denied all acts of violence, and also denied ever meeting Lucy. This is on the contrary to multiple reports placing him in the same bar as her only days prior to her disappearance. With Joji behind bars, but as evidence mostly circumstantial, Lucy's family needed more information to feel comfortable that he was Lucy's suspect. Off the back of this, an international appeal was launched to ask anyone who may have had experience with Joji Obara to come forward. 8 years earlier, in February of 1992, he was in love with a woman named Karita Ridgway. In fact, they were engaged, looking forward to spending the rest of their lives together. But things didn't quite turn out that way. Karita was an aspiring actress, but with her dream of making it big, she needed money to attend acting school. Kurita decided to pay for tuition by becoming a hostess in Tokyo's Kaprakuris, and as part of this agreement, she would go on dohans. On February 27, 1992, Kurita attended a dohan with a rich Japanese man, but after this date, she was dropped off unconscious. Kurita was rushed to the hospital in which doctors did the very best they could to save her. But tragically, 2 days later, she died of liver failure. The cause of her death was officially deemed to be hepatitis E or natural causes. She had no concerning medical history, and she was always clean. The boyfriend contacted Japanese authorities, who, in return, reopened Kurita's case with a sharp focus to link her with Joji Ibarra, and the conclusion they were looking for came very quickly. Amongst the 400 videotapes found in Joji's home was one named Kurita Ridgway, and in his diary on February 27, 1992, he had written Kurita Ridgway, too much chloroform. As tragic as this development was, this information was all that police needed to upgrade Joji's charges from assault to murder. And although this fresh evidence was successful in strengthening his role in Lucy's disappearance, it sadly didn't confirm it. But then, in January of 2001, 6 months after Lucy had vanished, a very sad and solemn discovery was made. On January 10, 2001, investigations led police to a cave off the shores of Mira in Kanagawa, and this cave was only 100 meters away from Joji's apartment. While here, they noticed uneven concrete underneath the basin of a bathtub. Rather puzzled, they began to remove the concrete, and what they found underneath were a series of packages. They slowly opened these packages up, and tragically, inside each of them were dismembered body parts, with even the head entombed in concrete. When post-mortem examiners cut into the cement, they hoped to find teeth to match with dental records. But instead, they immediately found one identifiable feature. It was long, natural blonde hair. As you can probably guess, the body was later confirmed to belong to Lucy Blackman. Lucy's family was devastated. The long spell of silence from their daughter already painted a very grave reality for her. But they always held on to the hope that maybe one day she would return, and this discovery would put an end to their hopes. The discovery of Lucy's body would ignite a very long, exhausting legal battle between Joji Ibarra and not just the family of Lucy and Kurita, but the family of many other victims too. Joji had now been charged with 9 counts of indecent assault, the murder of Kurita Ridgway, and now the murder of Lucy Blackman. But he would still deny having anything to do with Lucy's death, and this was despite her body being found not even 2 minutes from his apartment. Joji admitted that he'd spent the evening with her, but insisted that shortly after 5 p.m. she had left the apartment. Apparently, she was high, and therefore he asked her to leave. The entire trial would last almost 7 long years, which was full of disappointing spectacles by Joji. In one of his days in court, he refused to leave his jail cell, and instead he stripped naked, held onto his toilet basin, and repeatedly screamed no. There is some extremely frustrating evidence coming up, but before that, I wanted to share with you that Joji was found not guilty of the murder of Lucy Blackman, which makes the following details all the more enraging. Through the multitudes of analysis, investigators were able to confirm the following. At around 4 p.m. on July 1, 2000, Lucy met up with Joji. An hour later, she rang Louise to say that they were on their way to the coast. Mobile phone data confirms this. At 5:30 p.m., a Japanese couple saw Joji and Louise together at a seaside resort, and a photo from a camera from Joji's flat confirms that they were on the beach shortly after. Blonde hairs belonging to Lucy were found in his flat, and this was confirmed by DNA analysis. Mobile phone records confirmed that Lucy made a final call in the evening while in his home. This was confirmed by triangulating her mobile phone's coordinates. Copies of a forged signature were found in his apartment, proving that he was the fraudster who'd pretended to be her through a letter. We don't quite know what happened later this evening, but the very next day, on July 2nd, phone records show that Joji had called several hospitals in his area, asking how to treat someone who's experienced a drug overdose. The very next day, on July 3rd, receipts confirmed that Joji purchased a chainsaw, cement mix, and other tools from a hardware store, and later that afternoon, police were called by Joji's neighbor, who'd complained about suspicious activity and noise, as apparently they had heard Terrified shouting the day prior. It gets even more suspicious. Police reports indicate that late that afternoon, officers arrived at Joji's apartment to request that they look around. Upon entering, they found that he had cement mix on his hands, and he was visibly shaken. When police requested to look in his bathroom, he became aggressive and refused to let them in, instead exclaiming that they'd already seen enough. The police left without pressing this issue any further. Neighbors reported that later in the evening on the same day, they witnessed Joji pacing the small beach next to his apartment several times, and hospital records show that he was treated for extensive bug bites the next day, as a result for being outside all night. However, despite the text messages, phone calls, witness reports, police reports, forged signature, mobile phone data, DNA, previous cases, and bug bites, he was still found innocent over Lucy's murder. He was found guilty on 9 counts of indecent assault and the murder of Corita Ridgway, therefore sentencing him to life. But really, the reason for this is the prosecutor couldn't find any of his DNA on her body, and also they couldn't determine the cause of her death, so technically he was dismissed. And thankfully, 1 year later after being appealed, Joji was retrialed on the murder of Lucy Blackman, where he was finally found guilty. But seriously, this should have happened the first time around, at least to me. But this case highlights the show incompetence of Japan's former police force. I know in recent years, they've reformed to become more compassionate and responsive. But back then they really didn't care about their tourists. A few side notes from this case. While Joji was under trial and not yet found guilty, he offered Lucy's mother condolence money, formally requesting her to stop the trial, for £450,000. Understandably, she refused. But only days later, her ex-husband, which is Lucy's father, took the money instead. Obviously, this caused a massive rift in the family. And I'll let you be the judge on how moral this was to his own daughter. Joji's case is unique. He truly is a deviant and a monster to the highest degree. He assaulted not one, but hundreds of women and technically became a killer through his own ventures. And despite over 99% of Japan's murderers confessing once caught, he remains as part of the 1% who refuses to accept responsibility and blame. Joji Ibarra is a chronic liar who denies any accountability. And obviously, he is used to getting everything he desires. Who knows how many more women he would have terrorized if it wasn't for the tenacity and strong will of Lucy's family in France, all of which even 22 years later continue to live their lives with a hole in their heart. And so concludes the case of Joji Ibarra, Lucy Blackman, and Corita Ridgway. Story 5. On March 19, 2024, Heath Smiley returned home from work, unaware that a chilling confrontation awaited him. Moments after entering the house, a gunshot rang out as his 15-year-old stepdaughter, Carly, lay in wait. Hit by a bullet in the neck, Heath barely escaped with his life. In a 911 call, he reported, "I think my wife has been shot. I just got home and there is blood everywhere." With urgency in his voice, he detailed the chaos surrounding him and informed the dispatcher that Carly had fled the scene, leading law enforcement into a rapidly escalating crisis. What could drive a teenager to such a horrific act? Despite what should have been clear-cut evidence, surveillance footage, eyewitness accounts, and confessions, this case only proved one thing. Things were not as they seemed. Proving what truly happened that day and why would be a nearly impossible task. Hi, I'm Mark, and welcome to True Crime Stories. Today we're looking at a case that left a small Mississippi town in disbelief and had law enforcement and the courts searching for answers. The investigation into Carly Gregg's actions revealed family secrets, mental health issues, and an unexpected twist. This is the story of the Carly Gregg case. Let's dive in. The day began like any other for Carly and Ashley. Carly, an exceptional student who had skipped a grade, was known for her intelligence, but had recently shown signs of distress. She was undergoing therapy for anxiety and stress, largely stemming from her tumultuous relationship with her biological father, Kevin Gregg, who struggled with drug addiction. Meanwhile, Ashley, a dedicated algebra teacher from Northwest Rankin High School and a beloved figure in the community, was focused on her teaching career and her family life. At school that day, Carly interacted with friends and teachers, but kept her struggles hidden. Despite her outwardly normal behavior, she was secretly dealing with significant issues, including conflicts with her mother over drug use. Ashley had recently discovered that Carly was using marijuana through vape pens, which added tension to their relationship. Carly and Ashley arrived at their residence shortly after 4 p.m. Ashley had received information regarding Carly's alleged marijuana use through vape pens, which prompted her to confront Carly upon returning home. As soon as they entered the house, Ashley proceeded to Carly's bedroom to search for evidence of drug use. At this point, only the two were present in the home. Home surveillance footage captured Carly holding an object behind her back as she approached her mother. The nature of this object would soon become critical to the investigation. Ashley had kept a loaded firearm in the house for protection due to concerns about Carly's biological father, Kevin Gregg, who had a history of drug addiction. Carly had retrieved the same firearm located underneath the bedside where Ashley slept. Seconds after the confrontation began, Ashley was shot by Carly 3 times. After shooting her mother point blank, Carly sent a frantic text message to her friend, asking to come over and help with an emergency. This call for assistance indicated Carly's immediate need for support for shooting. Upon receiving the message, the friend quickly made her way to Carly's home. When Carly's friend arrived at the front door, she was greeted with a chilling question. "Are you squeamish around dead bodies?" This statement set a grim tone as Carly led her friend into the bedroom where Ashley lay on the floor. Carly then allegedly revealed, "I put 3 in my mom and I have 3 more for my stepdad when he gets home." After showing her friend the scene, Carly reportedly took down an interior camera from its mount and placed it in the refrigerator. This action suggested an attempt to tamper with evidence and indicated a level of premeditation regarding her actions. Prior to leaving the office, Heath Smiley, who was Carly's stepfather, had received a text from Ashley's phone asking when he would be returning home from work. He replied he would be working a little late. Heath arrived home at approximately 5:03 p.m. He initially perceived nothing unusual as he entered the house. However, as he opened the kitchen door, a gunshot rang out as he stepped onto the threshold. Carly was waiting to pounce, but fortunately for Heath, she could not get a good enough shot. Heath was grazed by a bullet in the neck area during this encounter. He subsequently attempted to follow Carly as she fled outside. Heath Smiley placed a frantic 911 call shortly after being shot by his own stepdaughter. In the call, he reported, "I think my wife has been shot. I just got home and there is blood everywhere." His voice was urgent as he provided details about the situation. He described being shot in the neck and indicated that Carly had fled the scene. Heath stated, "She shot me in the head," and informed the dispatcher that Carly had a firearm, which he believed was left on the kitchen counter. He provided a description of Carly and her direction of flight, saying she ran towards Magnolia Place. This information was critical for law enforcement as they began the response. Deputies from the Rankin County Sheriff's Office arrived on the scene within minutes of the 911 call. Upon arrival, they found Heath outside the front door, visibly injured and in need of medical attention. Officers quickly assessed his condition and called for medical assistance while securing the area. As deputies entered the home, they discovered Ashley lying on the floor of her bedroom. The scene was chaotic. Evidence of a violent confrontation was immediately apparent. The deputies noted multiple gunshot wounds on Ashley's body, confirming that she had been shot at close range. This discovery marked a significant turning point in the investigation. The initial assessment by law enforcement included securing the crime scene and gathering evidence. They noted the position of Ashley's body and collected any potential ballistics evidence from both inside and outside the home. The deputies also examined surveillance footage from both inside and outside the residence to piece together a timeline of events leading up to the shooting. Heath provided a detailed account of what he had encountered when he returned home, which would later serve as crucial testimony in court. His statements about Carly's actions immediately before and after the shooting were vital for understanding her state of mind. As part of their investigation, deputies also began a search for Carly, utilizing outdoor surveillance footage to track her movements after she fled. A Mississippi Highway Patrol helicopter was deployed to assist in locating her. Carly was apprehended approximately 30 minutes after the shooting without further incident. She was taken into custody and charged with multiple offenses, including murder and attempted murder, based on evidence gathered at the scene and Heath's statements. The swift response by law enforcement and their methodical approach to gathering evidence laid the groundwork for what would become a complex legal case involving serious charges against Carly Gregg. After the shooting incident from March 19, 2024, Carly Gregg was taken into custody shortly after law enforcement arrived at the scene. She was held at Rankin County Jail in Brandon, Mississippi, where she remained pending trial. Carly was charged as an adult with murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence. Her bond was set at $1 million, the significant amount reflecting the severity of the charges. Throughout this period, Carly remained in custody, awaiting the legal proceedings that would follow. During her time in custody, Carly's legal team began to prepare for her defense. The prosecution's case was based on the evidence collected at the scene, including eyewitness accounts and forensic analysis. Carly pleaded not guilty to all charges, maintaining her innocence as the case progressed. Carly also underwent several mental health evaluations to assess her psychological state. These evaluations were crucial in understanding her behavior leading up to the incident. Discussions around her history of anxiety in previous therapy sessions were significant as they became central to the defense's argument. In the months following her arrest, Carly was offered a plea deal that would result in a 40-year prison sentence. However, she rejected this device through her defense team, opting to go to trial instead. This decision indicated her desire to contest the charges against her fully. As the trial date approached, Carly's legal team focused on gathering evidence and witness testimonies. They sought to build a comprehensive defense that would address both the factual elements of the case and Carly's mental health issues. This preparation involved reviewing surveillance footage, analyzing text messages, and consulting with mental health experts. What would you do if you found yourself in the same situation as the defense team? The complexities of such a case often raise challenging questions about accountability and mental health. The case of Carly Gregg took a dramatic turn on August 19 when the defense attorneys faced scrutiny from the prestigious judge. While Carly had been deemed competent to stand trial, questions rose about her mental state at the time of the alleged crime. In a courtroom drama that received national attention, Judge Dewey Arthur questioned the defense's tactics regarding a crucial mental health evaluation report. The judge expressed concern about the report's delayed submission, suggesting it might have been a strategic maneuver to gain an advantage on the trial. The defense attorneys, Bridget Todd and Kevin Camp, maintained the delay was unintentional. They emphasized the complexity of obtaining the report and assured the court that they would share it with the prosecution as soon as it was finalized. Judge Arthur, however, remained skeptical. He warned that withholding the report could be seen as a deliberate attempt to manipulate the trial proceedings. He stressed the importance of transparency and fairness in the legal process. As the case progressed, the focus shifted on the mental health evaluations conducted on Carly. Dr. Amanda Gugliano, the psychologist who assessed Carly's competency, testified that medication changes in the months leading up to the incident could have influenced her mental state. However, Dr. Gugliano acknowledged her expertise did not extend to the potential side effects or impact of these medications. The defense team, recognizing the limitations of Dr. Gugliano's evaluation, contracted another doctor, Dr. Mark Webb, to conduct a comprehensive mental health assessment. The defense intended to present Dr. Webb's finding as evidence in court. The case of Carly Gregg continued as the date of the trial approached. On September 10th, 6 days before the trial, a motion was put forward in front of the judge by the defense in an attempt to exclude a crucial piece of evidence, a urine test administered upon her admission to the detention center. The defense argued that the test was conducted without proper authorization and should be deemed inadmissible. Prosecutors countered that this very test was necessary for safety purposes and that Gregg had voluntarily admitted to using marijuana. They argued that the evidence of marijuana use was relevant to Gregg's potential mental state at the time of the crime. Judge Dewey Arthur, after careful consideration, ruled in favor of the prosecution, denying the defense's motion to surpass the drug test. The judge found the search to be reasonable based on the circumstances and the potential risks involved. In a separate development, the judge issued a gag order prohibiting Greg's attorneys from speaking to the media about the case. This decision came in response to the allegations that the defense had violated procedural rules by commenting on the facts of the case. The first day of the Carly Gregg murder trial unfolded in a somber courtroom atmosphere. Prosecution presented evidence, including a 911 call recording and body cam footage of the day of the shooting. Carly Gregg, now 15, was accused of murdering her mother, Ashley Smiley, and attempting to murder her stepfather, Heath Smiley, on March 9th. The trial began with the testimony of Rankin County dispatcher Kevin Collins, who played the 911 call made by Heath Smiley. In the recording, Heath could be heard sounding hysterical and frantic, describing the shooting and the tragic discovery of his wife's body. The prosecution then presented body cam footage from Rankin County Patrol Deputy Hunter Lewis, who arrived at the scene. The footage captured the chaos of the situation as Heath Smiley, visibly distraught, informed the deputy of the shooting and the location of his deceased wife. The jury watched as the body cam footage revealed the tragic scene inside the home, where Ashley Smiley lay lifeless. The footage provided a stark visual of the aftermath of the crime. During opening statements, the prosecution painted a picture of Carly Gregg's secret life, including her relationship with a boyfriend, her use of social media, and her self-harm. They alleged that on the day of the shooting, Carly had an altercation with a friend at school, and that her mother had discovered her vape pens in her bedroom. The prosecution argued that Carly had shot her mother with a .357 Magnum gun, and she was concealing behind her back. They presented evidence supporting their claims, including ballistic evidence and gunshot residue found on Carly's hands. The defense, however, painted a different perspective. They argued that Carly loved her mother and was a good student. They suggested that Carly might have been terrified and confused when her stepfather returned home, leading to the tragic events. The trial continued with the aim of uncovering the truth behind the tragic murder of Ashley Smiley. As the evidence unfolded, the jury faced the difficult task of determining Carly Gregg's guilt or innocence. What would you do if you were a juror in this case? How would you weigh the evidence and determine Carly's fate? The second day of the Carly Gregg murder trial delved deeper into the events surrounding the tragic incident. Heath Smiley, Carly's stepfather, took the stand to provide his account of the day. Heath described his positive relationship with Carly and his admiration for Ashley as a mother. He recounted the morning of the shooting as normal, with no apparent signs of distress from Carly. Heath detailed the moments leading up to the shooting, including receiving a text message from Ashley and arriving home. He described the chaos of the situation when he opened the door and was confronted with the gun. Heath recounted the struggle to disarm Carly and the subsequent gunshots. He described Carly as appearing scared and hysterical after the shooting. Heath also testified to searching the house for an intruder, but found none. Friends of Carly testified about her character and changes in her behavior. They described her as a good girl with no history of violence, but noticed increasing drug use and concerning statements about harming her parents. One friend, BW, recounted the conversation with Carly after the shooting. She was the friend who came over when Carly had asked for help after shooting her mother. BW also told the court that Carly had allegedly admitted to shooting her mother and expressed a desire to harm her stepfather. BW also testified hearing gunshots after she ran into the backyard, traumatized by Carly's confession of killing her own mother. The trial also explored Carly's relationship with her biological father, Kevin Gregg. Heath testified that Kevin had a history of drug use and that his presence in Carly's life had caused concern. He mentioned specific instances where Kevin's behavior had negatively impacted Carly, like forcing her to drink at such a young age. The defense used the biological father as a means to divert the attention from the murders being a deliberate act and instead a haphazard mishap due to Carly's volatile mental health. Defense also continued to present their case, emphasizing Carly's mental health issues and her love of her mother. They argued that the tragic events were a result of her mental state rather than a deliberate act of violence. The third day of the Carly Gregg murder trial delved deeper into the complexities of the case. The defense presented a comprehensive picture of Carly's mental health history, drawing from medical records, school records, journal entries, and a sketchbook. Dr. Andrew Clark, a renowned child and adolescent psychiatrist, testified as an expert witness as part of the defense's witnesses. He diagnosed Carly with bipolar II disorder, a condition characterized by fluctuating moods and periods of mania or depression. Dr. Clark presented detailed evidence from Carly's medical records, highlighting her long-standing struggles with depression and anxiety. He discussed specific incidents of self-harm and concerning behavior that dated back several years. The analysis of Carly's journal entries and sketchbook revealed a darker side of her mental state. Dr. Clark read aloud excerpts that expressed feelings of despair, hopelessness, and aggression. The entries provided insights into Carly's inner turmoil and potential struggles with intrusive thoughts. The defense argued that Carly's mental health issues, combined with the stressors in her life, created a perfect storm that led to her violent actions. They emphasized her difficult childhood, including the loss of a sister and her parents' divorce. The prosecution, however, challenged Dr. Andrew Clark's assessment. They questioned the reliability of Carly's self-reported symptoms and argued that she was capable of understanding the difference between right and wrong at the time of the crimes. Carly's relationship with her biological father was once again at hand on the third day, too. Keith Smiley, Carly's stepfather, had previously testified about Kevin's history of drug use and its negative impact on Carly. The defense presented evidence suggesting that Carly's relationship with Kevin was strained and she experienced emotional trauma as a result of his behavior. This information further supported the argument that Carly's mental health was influenced by her family dynamics. As the trial progressed, the jury faced the complex task of weighing the evidence and determining Carly Gregg's guilt or innocence. Nonetheless, the details provided on the third day provided a more comprehensive understanding of Carly's mental health struggles and the potential impact they had on her actions. The fourth day of the Carly Gregg murder trial featured testimonies from rebuttal witnesses called by the state. These witnesses aimed to counter the defense's expert testimony regarding Carly's mental state. First up was Olivia Labor, a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. She first met with Carly in January 2024, conducting a comprehensive evaluation. She testified that during her initial assessment and throughout the sessions she had with Carly explicitly denied hearing voices. It was also Labor who had prescribed medication changes to address Carly's depression and anxiety. As per Labor's testimony, despite the medication changes, Carly did not report any hallucinations or delusions during subsequent sessions. The next witness to come in front of the jury was Rebecca Kirk, a licensed professional counselor. She had met with Carly for counseling on 9 different occasions prior to the tragic events of the 19th of March. She testified that throughout their sessions, Carly did not express any suicidal or homicidal tendencies or thoughts. She also emphasized that depression and anxiety were common among her clients, suggesting that Carly's symptoms were not unusual. Last to testify against the jury on the fourth day was Dr. Jason Pickett, a forensic psychiatrist. He had been in charge of assessing Carly's mental state against the legal criteria for insanity in Mississippi. He analyzed various types of evidence, including Carly's journal entries, statements, and circumstances surrounding the case. Based on his analysis, Dr. Pickett told the court that Carly understood the nature and wrongfulness of her actions at the time of the incident. Another analysis of Dr. Pickett, which he incurred after analyzing both Carly's writings and statements, was that some of them were theatrical and others were concerning. It was Dr. Pickett who further emphasized in front of the court that the low dosage of Lexapro, which Carly had been switched to recently, could not be the reason for Carly Gregg to commit those alleged atrocities she did on the fateful day of March 19, 2024. Hence, the state's expert witnesses provided accounts that differed significantly from the testimonies of the defense's expert, Dr. Andrew Clark. Dr. Clark had previously testified that Carly was experiencing a mental health crisis at the time of the shooting. He cited her struggles with mood swings, eating disorders, self-harm, and hearing voices as evidence of her deteriorating mental state. The morning of the fifth day of Carly Gregg's murder trial marked a significant moment in the case. The jury, having deliberated throughout the previous day, was set to deliver their verdict. As the courtroom fell silent, the judge announced the jury's decision. In a solemn tone, he declared Carly Gregg guilty of all 3 charges: murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence. Following the verdict, the jury turned their attention to the sentencing phase of the trial. They would now determine the appropriate punishment for Carly Grigg based on the evidence presented and the severity of her crimes. The judge, considering the severity of the crimes and the evidence presented, sentenced Carly Grigg to life in prison without parole for the murder of her mother and attempted murder of her stepfather. Additionally, Grigg was sentenced to 10 years in prison for tampering with evidence. However, the judge ruled that that sentence would run concurrently, meaning that Carly Grigg would serve a total to life in prison. The courtroom was filled with emotions as the sentence was announced. Carly Grigg, overcome with grief and despair, broke down in tears. Her family members, including Keith Smiley, Ashley Smiley's parents, and other relatives, also expressed their emotions. Before the jury could deliver their final verdict on the sentencing, the prosecution and defense presented their final arguments. Prosecutor Catherine Newman argued that Carly Grigg showed no remorse for her actions. Newman also emphasized that Carly understood the nature and consequences of her actions. She also presented evidence to support the claim that Grigg acted with premeditation and intent. On the other hand, the defense attorneys, Bridget Todd and Kevin Camp, pleaded for leniency, highlighting Grigg's mental health struggles. They also emphasized Grigg's love for her mother and her positive relationship with her stepfather. They also argued that Carly's actions were influenced by her mental health issues and that she may not have fully understand the consequences of her actions. The jury, composed of diverse members, deliberated for 2 long hours before reaching a unanimous verdict. Carly Grigg was found guilty on all 3 charges: murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence. Carly Grigg was sentenced to life in prison without parole for killing her mother, attempting to kill her stepfather, and tampering with evidence. Both judge and jury were on the same page as they found her guilty of all 3 offenses and agreed upon the decided sentence. The judge did not show a slight bit of leniency, and he added the 10 concurrent years for evidence tampering. As for Carly, she's not done yet. Just a couple of weeks after the outcome of the initial trial, she's already seeking a new trial. Should she have taken the 40 years offered as a plea, or did she do the right thing to go through the trial? Story 6. The Price of Love. What determines our future? Definitely the decisions we make and the actions we take. However, sometimes chance intervenes in the usual way of life, and then they say that you can't escape fate. Also happened to the heroes of today's story, Joseph and Olga Connell, whose life paths crossed in an unexpected way, after which the couple never parted. Unfortunately, the lovers could not enjoy each other to the fullest, as they were destined for a terrible fate. Around 2 a.m. on September 23, 2013, a series of gunshots rang out near the Paladin Club condominium in Wilmington, Delaware. When eyewitnesses ran to the scene, they saw a man and a woman lying on the ground. A little later, a call went out to emergency services. The caller reported the attack and its victims. Medics arrived and administered first aid. Despite the gunshot wounds to the face and loss of blood, the victim was alive, which could not be said about her companion. The bullet-riddled man showed no signs of life. Apparently, he was killed instantly, shot in the back of the head. Unfortunately, time was running against him. Realizing this, police officers questioned the woman about what had happened. In response, she uttered something inaudible and lost consciousness. The victim was rushed to the hospital. However, halfway there, she gave up her last attempts to fight for life and died. Working at the scene, specialists found personal belongings and documents. Connell's newlyweds turned out to be the deceased. All valuables, wallet, purse, cell phones, and even the diamond ring on Olga's hand, were not stolen, which means that the attack was not an attempted robbery, but a targeted murder. It was later determined that the victims were attacked outside their home. After the young men returned home from celebrating their spouse's 39th birthday, the attackers acted in a treacherous manner and fired approximately 25 shots into their backs. Detectives had to figure out what interrupted the couple's love affair and whether the motive for the crime could have been a long-running domestic dispute. Connell family Joseph was born into a successful and close-knit family. He was the middle child and had an older brother, John, and a younger sister, Kelly. During the younger years, the children often quarreled over nothing. But when their parents divorced, they rallied and became inseparable. After the breakup of relations, the guys stayed to live with their mother. After a while, another man appeared in the life of a woman. The new marriage turned out to be successful in all plans. The family still did not need anything, and the stepfather replaced the father. The family lived in a fairly quiet and cozy neighborhood. During the day, everyone went about their business. And in the evenings, everyone gathered around the round table and discussed personal events. Joe grew up a correct and persistent boy. However, these qualities were more about school and work. Otherwise, he was a fun-loving boy and the soul of the company. Even from an early age, the young man dreamed of starting his own business and to establish himself as a businessman. Thanks to his business acumen and resourcefulness, his efforts bore fruit. Together with his best friend, Christopher Rivers, the hero of the story became the owner of a machine store and a specialized store in Tullyville. Everyone in the neighborhood knew the young men as successful partners who had risen from scratch. The buddies were very friendly, moreover, burned a common idea and developed their business. The story of acquaintance Joseph was a convinced bachelor until he met a Russian beauty Olga. Communication between the young people began on the dating site. They quickly found common topics for conversation as they were already quite mature people with a lot of life experience. A female friend admitted online that she was in the process of divorce and had only recently moved to the United States. The man told about his experienced relationships and plans for the future. Both interlocutors were sociable and bright personalities, had similar interests and views on life. Therefore, it is not surprising that gradually their feelings grew into something more. One day Joe realized that he no longer imagines his life without his beloved and made her an offer. Olga reciprocated. The only nuance was the fact that the bride has not yet been presented to the family. However, the man did not fear for this. He was confident in his choice and in the reaction of relatives. The beauty and character of the chosen one charmed his relatives. They were in shock that there was a woman who managed to melt the heart of a hot, loving relative. Relationships of the couple developed rapidly. Joe took Olga everywhere with him, proud of her appearance and charisma. Therefore, without shyness, did not hide his love. However, over time it became clear that behind the female malleability and tenderness hides a real Siberian temperament where the beloved was born. Her irrepressible energy and entrepreneurial spirit amazed everyone. She seemed to be able to do anything. Connell was so delighted and in love that he decided not to postpone the wedding in a long time. Perhaps he was in such a hurry to get married, unwittingly anticipating the coming events. Such people are usually said in a hurry to live. Surely each of you have encountered such examples in your environment. Investigation. After the attack, the police interviewed the crowd, bystanders, and neighbors of the victims. Perhaps among them were those who could clarify something. Unfortunately, none of them had seen what had happened. However, many people heard gunshots which caused them to run away. There were even those who claimed to have heard loud male voices shortly before the shooting. They seemed to be arguing with the newlyweds about something. Violent crime ensued. Not far from the scene of the crime, forensic experts found a large number of fired casings that belonged to two different types of weapons. Thus, it became clear that there were several attackers. The sheer number of gunshots indicated that the couple was initially given a death sentence. It is unlikely that anyone would have managed to stay alive in such a shootout. To carry out their plan, the criminals waited for the young people to return from the party. The birthday party took place in one of the popular bars. Friends and some members of the party. Everyone had fun and danced until midnight, and when they were tired, they went home. The couple parked their car at the house and headed toward the front entrance. It was at this point that the intruders found the most opportune time to carry out their criminal scheme. The next step in the investigation was to interview the family members of the victims. Officers spoke to Joseph's parents. They asked about the couple's alleged enemies and detractors. But the man's mother and stepfather replied that they knew nothing about it. At first glance, the newlyweds had no foes. On the other hand, there is hardly anyone who does not have envious people. In any case, none of the newly wedded spouses told it. At the same time, the detectives heard some curious information. It turns out that Joe and his sister Kelly had a spat on the eve of the wedding. It concerned an expensive family ring encrusted with diamonds. According to experts, its value was about $20,000. After the quarrel, relations between the relatives were not the same. However, all relatives claimed that Kelly would never have gone to the crime. Especially, it turned out that after the attack, the ring remained on Olga's finger. Nevertheless, the version about the hidden offense had to be checked. By a strange coincidence, on the unfortunate night Kelly was one of the first on the scene of the crime. Despite the fact that the woman lived in another neighborhood, that time she was nearby. The ring story. The lovers planned to get married in the Virgin Islands. The only thing that marred the wedding preparations was the engagement ring. According to family tradition, the mother passed the family jewel to her son. However, the jewelry had already been given to the youngest daughter for the wedding, which took place 10 years ago. In order not to change the established custom, Joe discreetly took the ring from his sister and replaced the precious stones with zirconium. After that, he secretly returned the ring to the mistress and diamonds inserted into the setting of Olga's engagement jewelry. The deed of the protagonist is difficult to explain, especially given his financial situation. Perhaps in this way he decided not to violate the established rules. It was assumed that none of the women should not have guessed it. However, things had not gone as calculated. Kelly noticed the switch and began looking for the culprit. When the younger sister learned of her brother's action, she was extremely outraged. Understandably, she expressed her indignation to Joseph. However, the latter was very upset, as he thought that the sister was angry for nothing and just wanted to violate family traditions and ruin the wedding. One way or another, but the ceremony took place. Kelly did not attend the event, citing employment. At the same time, in retaliation, the woman decided to mar the celebration and sent a sarcastic message to Olga. So the unsuspecting bride learned the truth. After that, the relationship between brother and sister became strained. Periodically between them there were altercations, often sounded mutual reproaches and insults, and the event that occurred afterward and completely knocked everyone out of the rut, a mysterious robbery. Joint life at the newlyweds began there in the Virgin Islands. During the honeymoon, the couple enjoyed marriage. Olga and Joseph sunbathed on the beach, swam in the sea, fished, rode on a yacht, and tried exotic cuisine. There was plenty of money for these purposes. Joe was proud that the business was booming and bringing in a tangible income, about $1 million a year. Back home, the newlyweds bought an expensive Mercedes car. The new convertible cost them $100,000. Since Olga did not belong to those women who are happy to sit on the neck of her husband, she began to help her husband. Olga was well-educated and well-read, well-versed in English, and also had an unprecedented charm. In addition, the past experience of working on the stock exchange came in handy. Therefore, she easily entered the business and engaged in administration. As soon as the lovely blonde took up the business, Joe and Chris had a lot more clients. A week before the attack near the condominium, someone broke into the home of a young family. While the couple were busy doing business, an unknown person stole jewelry and family heirlooms. The diamond ring was Olga's that day. After the Connell couple returned home, the head of the family noticed the illegal intrusion and called the police. Law enforcement officers examined the scene and surprisingly did not find any evidence. The search for the burglar yielded no solid results. Detectives put forward a version that the robbery was the result of someone staging or the work of a professional. That's why Kelly was under a lot of suspicion. As many believed, the sister had every reason to stage the crime. Perhaps over time, she could not forgive her brother for what he had done and decided to teach him a lesson. However, soon the investigation of the case came to a dead end. A more terrible crime happened to the spouses and all the attention of detectives shifted to the investigation of a double crime. Search for motive. When detectives interviewed Kelly, she looked grief-stricken. The woman cooperated with the investigation and didn't hide anything. She told about the conflict with Joe and even showed correspondence about it. In one of the messages, Olga expressed the opinion that the recent robbery was organized by Kelly herself. However, Kelly denied it. But the investigation could not exclude her from the number of suspects and, as the woman later admitted, exerted powerful pressure in some places. Despite the obvious motive, all the facts were to the contrary. At none of the interrogations did the victim's younger sister change her testimony, nor was she confused. During Joe and Olga's funeral, the sister looked broken. It was obvious that she loved her brother and was grieving the loss. At the same time, other versions of the murder were being considered. Joseph Connell belonged to the number of enviable grooms, and his wife was a rare beauty. Therefore, jealousy was not ruled out as a motive for the crime. Perhaps not everyone around the couple shared their happiness, and some of the former young people could hold a grudge and, after their marriage, to take revenge in life. However, the suspicions of detectives were not confirmed. During the investigation, it was found that Joe parted with his former companions on a good note. Moreover, they have long married and are happily married. This applies to Olga's past relationships as well. She divorced her Russian husband and cut off all contacts. However, an offended man would hardly take any measures to settle accounts with his ex-wife, and even more so to travel a great distance across the ocean to do so. In this regard, this theory has been ruled out. Nevertheless, the search for enemies of newlyweds continued. At the same time, the investigators did not give rest to the subject of discord between brother and sister. Greed is a common reason for committing a crime. Therefore, after questioning Kelly, the investigation focused on Garrett Catalano, her husband. The man loved his wife very much and would do anything for her. It is likely that at the request of his beloved, he could have gone for a double crime. During the conversation, the potential suspect behaved calmly and convincingly. It turns out that he had a reliable alibi and also confirmed the innocence of his wife. However, Garrett expressed doubts that his brother-in-law made a multimillion-dollar fortune by honest labor. Catalano opaquely hinted that Joe may have been dealing in illegal substances. Over time, his words took hold. There were others who claimed that Joe was secretly selling steroids and making mad money from it. Secret witnesses identified another man we know as one of his associates. Thus, the detectives came upon a longtime friend and business partner, Christopher Rivers' best friend. Chris, unlike everyone around him, didn't seem to be worried about what had happened. He continued to lead his usual life. It was understandable that he had the double responsibility for the business. Meetings with suppliers, work with clients made him hold on. But still, his irrepressible vigor and strength of mind led to strange thoughts. One day, the investigators decided to talk to the man. He said that on the ill-fated night, he was supposed to be present at the celebration, but could not show up because he was busy at work. Despite a long friendship and the premature death of his partner, Christopher unexpectedly spoke out unflatteringly. He said that Joseph had changed recently and was apparently unscrupulous. Rivers did not avoid Olga. Allegedly, he heard that the wife of Joe was not as simple as she wanted to seem and came to the U.S. to represent the interests of the Russian mafia. And a successful marriage only untied her hands. The words of the companion explained the high income of the family, but his suspicions needed careful verification. Perhaps everything the man said was just rumor and speculation. Or maybe there was a good reason for it. However, Joseph's connection to the underworld soon became apparent. The information was not a secret and was publicly available. It turns out that a few years before meeting with Olga, her lover was accused of illegal possession of weapons and even served a decent term for it. During his time in prison, the man managed to acquire new acquaintances. It is not excluded that after serving his sentence, local authorities pulled him into the trade in illegal substances. Perhaps over time, Connell crossed someone's path and they decided to take him out. But could the connections acquired behind bars have been the motive for the attack? The investigation was gathering momentum. While the detectives were working on the shady business, an interesting point came to light. Harry Cook, a well-known drug dealer, said he had heard Rivers make negative remarks about Joe on more than one occasion. Rivers accused his business partner of stealing. Chris Rivers admitted to him that he and his companion were selling illegal medical drugs through an auto parts store. But the buddy is greedy and distributes the profits unequally, while Chris is in greater need of money and has huge debts. And Joseph himself spends all the finances on an idle life. For this reason, Rivers joked that he wouldn't mind if his friend disappeared, and later seriously asked Harry if he wanted to help him in this, to which the latter replied no. Thus, the identity of Rivers appeared in a different light. In this regard, the investigation repeatedly questioned Chris. However, he had an alibi. At the time of the murder, the man was at home, which was confirmed by external and internal video surveillance cameras. At the same time, specialists decided to check his censures and studied the accounting documents of the firm. It turned out that despite the large revenue, the business did suffer losses. However, as it turned out, numerous embezzlements have nothing to do with Connell. It was the stipulator himself who was responsible. Police informants reported that Chris has been using heavy substances for a long time, and lately his addiction has gotten out of control. This explains the numerous debts and shoplifting. Against this background, the man developed paranoia. That's why he repeatedly confessed to acquaintances that they want to kill him. In addition, it became known that he was personally involved in the sale of steroids. And Joe blindly believed his comrade and was in the dark about what was happening in front of his nose. In addition, Joe's attention turned to the new relationship. This information became known thanks to the information of a mysterious informant, a sick mind. Detectives came upon the man after examining Rivers' phone records. He was known to make a lot of phone calls on the night of September 23rd. Despite being at home at the time of the crime, his phone did not go silent. All calls were subsequently cleared from the device, but experts had no trouble reconstructing the story. Most of the calls belonged to Joshua, a former FBI informant. When police contacted Joshua, he admitted that he often used Rivers' services. One day, Chris Rivers made him a tempting offer, $65,000 for his companion's head. The big money undoubtedly attracted the man. However, Joshua did not want to participate in the case directly and found other hitmen. To this end, he turned to Dominic Benson and Aaron Thompson. Mercenaries cost him $5,000, which he received from the customer as an advance payment. Eventually, the confusing crime picture came to light. The best friend had sentenced his buddy and his spouse to a sad end. Was the motive behind the crime a grudge and a desire for sole ownership of a shared business? No, it was the $1 million that one of the partners was entitled to as an insurance payout. It turned out that long before the appearance of Olga, the former partners had secured the business and insured their lives. In the event of the death of one of them, the other received the amount to pay off the mortgage on the machine shop. If Joe died, the amount received would be enough to pay off all of Chris's debts. But here's the problem. His partner got married, and all payments were due to the legal spouse. So Rivers decided to take out two of them at once. The conversation that took place between the organizer and his accomplice on the night of the crime indirectly confirmed this. Although the communications between the men were encrypted, it was obvious that Rivers was concerned about the success of the operation. To better analyze the communication between the two men, detectives seized phones from the four suspects. Thanks to the mobile devices, their movements on the night of the crime were recorded. Dominic and Aaron were at that moment near the house of the young couple, Connell. Curiously, the video footage that confirmed Chris's alibi played against him. The cameras show that the man is nervous and does not let the phone out of his hands. After detectives reached out to Joshua, he didn't put up a fight and surrendered to authorities. To mitigate his punishment during the interrogation, the man agreed to a deal with the investigation and testified against the customer. Thus, Christopher came up with a cunning plan. He wanted to use the quarrel between his brother and sister to frame Kelly. During the investigation, it was proved that the robbery at the Connell house was the next stage of the criminal plot. Following Christopher's instructions, Joshua broke into the couple's home and burglarized it. However, the head of the was a controversial family heirloom, a diamond ring. Coincidentally, Olga was wearing it that day. If the plan had succeeded, the investigation would have followed a false trail and blamed everything on Joe's sister. But this was not enough for Rivers, and after the crime, he tried to blacken the name of his friend. As it turned out later, The death of Joe and his lover was the result of a cold-blooded and carefully planned crime for money, justice. In 2014, Chris Rivers was indicted on several charges. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, as well as conspiracy in the first degree and solicitation of a felony in the first degree. His co-defendants were also tried. The trials took place separately but parallel to each other. During the trial, it was proven that Aaron Thompson was the one who held the weapon. He was therefore found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and first-degree conspiracy. The felon received 2 life sentences and plus 45 years. His buddy Dominic Benson was acquitted on the felony charge because he changed his mind about shooting at the last minute. Therefore, for first-degree conspiracy and aiding and abetting criminals, he received only 5 years in prison. Thanks to his active cooperation with the police for the murder conspiracy, Joshua got the same sentence. As for the main instigator of the crime, Chris Rivers, he was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 50 years. We can forgive another person anything but success, goes the famous saying. Despite his young age, Joseph was a remarkable man. He built a business, found the love of his life, except that he was not left with the opportunity to enjoy happiness. Together, the couple could reach new heights, build a strong family, and have heirs. However, the thirst for profit and the dislike of his partner made irreparable adjustments to their measured life. Money, one of the old and common motives for crime. Christopher's pernicious addiction and greed ruined several lives. During his years in prison, the convict will surely be cured of his pernicious addiction to substances. But will he be able to stifle the guilt that is supposed to come with time? Unknown. Or maybe in his case, the voice of conscience will never be heard. After all, not everyone dares to spend the rest of his life in a constant struggle with himself. And the night deepens. Thank you for being here with me at Radio Night Crime. True crime stories remind us of life's mysteries and the need to stay aware, even in the stillness of the night. If you enjoyed tonight's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let the sound of the rain lull you to sleep, and until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and let the night keep you company.